and thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Power Within podcast. I'm your host, Laurie. Today, I'm thrilled to have Cindy Busby back on the podcast. Cindy is one of my favorite people to talk to. She is warm and fun and bubbly. She is incredibly talented, and she's one of the most genuine and authentic human beings that I've ever gotten to know, and I'm so grateful to her. We had a wonderful conversation where she shares about her new show that she's in, When Hope Calls, that's coming out this weekend. We talk about her return to Heartland. She shares about the things that she's creating and sharing with the world and why she enjoys doing that. We talk about faith and challenges and masks that people wear. I just really enjoyed this conversation with her. I hope that you guys enjoy this. I hope that you can learn something new about yourself or something new to contemplate. I always enjoy talking to Cindy because she gives me different perspectives to look at and new opportunities to be grateful and excited about this incredible life that we're living. I hope that you guys love this episode and thank you for listening. Hi, Cindy. Thank you so much for coming back on the podcast. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me. It's always so fun to get to have these wonderful conversations with you.
So much has happened since you came on the podcast last time. So I want to start with your work. So you did a 4-part Christmas series. You returned to Heartland, and then you're in the whole season of When Hope Calls, the new season coming. So I want to ask you how you maintained your schedule for all of those different things, where 2 of them are series. I know you came back at the end of Heartland, and
Yeah.
are you going to be coming back for that again?
Well, thankfully there was some time in between. Yeah, last year was like a lot of firsts and a lot of like new beginnings and new experiences. With Unwrapping Christmas, which was the 4-part Christmas series I was on for Hallmark Plus, that was the first time that I was able to do like multiple movies where I was the lead of one and then kind of touch base in each of the movies. Yeah, that was fun. So I got to shoot my movie first, then come back to shoot like the crossover scenes. So that was really, a month of my time and then another like week and a half of my time, which was like a couple, months later. And then I had a bit of time off, and then I found out about Heartland, which was a complete and utter surprise. I did not see it coming. As I've said before, after 11 years, of not being on the show. And they called me and they asked if I was interested. And actually, I had other people find out about it because they got the scripts before I even found out that I was in the script. And they were like, they're like, oh my gosh, is it true? Are you coming back? And I was like, wait, what? But it all worked out, which was amazing. So yeah, it was a very, fast, quick trip to do that. And I had just come back from a trip to Hawaii with my husband, Chris. And so it was a big kind of turnaround. And then I found out, I guess about a month later, that I booked the part of When Hope Calls of Nora, which was, yeah, I don't know. Life is just so amazing and so unexpected. And, it's just been the gift that keeps on giving. And thankfully I do have time in between because I have been in those experiences. I remember in 2019 where it was literally like back to back to back things. And you're kind of like on a momentum, and you're like in the adrenaline and you're just going and you're living in the moment and you're just like boom, 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 boom. But then when you finally take a moment to like relax and take a breath, you're like, oh, I'm actually kind of burnt out right now. And when you're in the momentum, you don't really feel the effects that it can have on your like, it's not like it's all positive. It's just, it does take a toll. Our industry is so incredible, but it's really long days and a lot of sacrifices, which are totally worth it. Otherwise, why would we do it? But it certainly can have, an effect unless you have tools that you've kind of taken up in your life. But yeah, it's been an amazing, gosh, 2024 was really, in my career, it was a beautiful time.
Was that shift back to working on a series hard for you?
Not really. I feel like so a series is quite fast paced. Like you're kind of just like shooting, boom, boom, boom. Depending if it's a half hour or an hour long show, will depend on how many days you're shooting the episodes. Usually it's in a block, so you'll shoot 2 episodes as at once. So the block will be, 2 weeks or 3 weeks, depending on the type of show it is. But yeah, I feel like with all of the various TV movies that I've done, those are shot really quickly as well, where you're doing, 8, 9 pages a day. And for reference, like, movies like Mission Impossible or something, like, big movies like that will typically sometimes do, like, depending on the scene, like 1 page, maybe half a page a day, like depending, or maybe like sometimes a page over a course of a couple days, depending, if it's action or whatever. So yeah, it's fast paced, you're moving on quickly. You get 3 takes typically, and then you're like on to the next setup. So no, I feel like it's been pretty easy for me to go from the movies I do to TV because they are quite similar in that regards, the fast pace of it all. I feel like if I did, when I do, a really big movie like Mission Impossible, that'll probably be a huge change of pace. Where if I were to be doing like half a page a day, I'd be like, wait, what? Why am I not working? Or like, why am I not doing more? That would be an interesting change for sure of pace.
Now, had you watched the show prior to being cast on it, and what about the character made you want to play her?
So, fun fact, I actually initially auditioned for When Hope Calls when it first had its like first leg. So back in like, what was it, 2018 or something like that. So I knew about the project. I knew about the characters. I had, seen it. Not all of it, but I'd seen it. And yeah, I was very well aware. And I was on When Calls the Heart years ago. So, I understand the world. And, but yeah, what I loved most about Nora Anderson, who I get to play and bring to life, is, she's like she's a big city gal who has lost all of her family, and she's looking to find the one family she just found out she has. And she's looking for connection. She's looking for community. And she's, very well known in her career as a lawyer, and she is established in that. And for a woman in this time period in 1920, like that's a really big deal. And, but she wants more than that, she's looking for, again, like that connection and to someone, and she finds so much more than that in Brookfield, in the city. And I feel like me, Cindy Busby, that's something that's really important to me, to have community, to have connection. Whether it's to people, whether it's to nature, whether it's to myself. I think that there's a really beautiful experience and all that. And also what's really fun about being part of a series, which I really have been looking forward to for such a long time. And one of the many things I loved about being on Heartland was you get to create, like in the movies that I have been doing, and I like will continue to do, you have 2 hours, like an hour and a half to really create the whole character arc, which takes place maybe in a week, maybe in 2 weeks or a month. And you're showing like a huge change in a very little amount of time, versus a series. You have longevity, hopefully, fingers crossed, where you over seasons and episodes will show different aspects of the character growing and expanding and learning about themselves and learning about other people, and showing humanity, because humanity is we grow and change every day, every week, every month, and that's like what's really cool about being on a series is getting to show that longevity of the character arc and showing various sides of the character within different circumstances because everybody behaves in different ways based on what they're faced with. So that's what I'm really excited about with Nora. Plus, I got to work with Christopher Russell, which I'm so excited about. We've done 4 movies together. He's my buddy. He's my friend. Like we just genuinely love working together. Love hanging out together. I've met his family. He knows my family. Like it's just like it feels like family. And when you get to work with friends, it's like it's the icing on the cake. It's the dream come true, and that's really cool.
I loved when you started talking
Yeah.
about him. All I could think about was at Christmas Con because you guys have a really fun like repertoire with each other. When
Yeah.
you did the video with him and you were like, bring in the hunks. And it just made me laugh. I loved that video. And I thought it was so fun that you guys have that like great
Yeah, we
dynamic
have
with
good.
each other.
We have a good dynamic. We've got good banter. Um, and I think that that's the best when you can find relationships in work or where everyone like the person is super talented and professional, but also you can have fun with and laugh and go back and forth with. Like that's the best because sometimes you meet people and they're all business, or sometimes you meet people and they like just want to fool around and like laugh and whatever, and you're just like, okay, but like also let's work. So there's a really good dynamic there for us, and because we've known each other for such a long time, I feel like we've been able to establish that dynamic quite well. And it was cool, it was cool to see each other out. I remember he was like, tell me, oh, like, when I found out you were going to play Nora, I was like, oh, wow, like I know Cindy in such a different way. And then I saw you come out with the costume and the character and this and that. And he was like, oh, and then we did our first scene together. He's like, oh, like I totally see it. It's so amazing to see each other in different roles. And for us too, we get to have that connection in the scene, right? Which is completely different from the audience. So to be able to have that in a different light is really cool too.
And when you work with people, like you had worked with like your Heartland cast for a long time, and you're talking about with Christopher, you've worked with him on numerous films.
Yeah.
Does it make it that much easier for you to be like, okay, let's get in a role, like because you guys kind of already know what you
Yeah.
do like, what you don't like. So does that make it easier?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's like, putting an old pair of jeans, they just fit right. Like they're comfortable, you can have a big old pizza and feel good after. It's just like it just feels good. And don't get me wrong, like I love meeting new people and working with new people as well. But there's something about, it's like that old friend that you haven't seen in like 2 years, but then you see each other and it's like no time has passed. You can talk about everything. You feel at ease. You feel relaxed. Being on set is an intense dynamic. You've got a lot of things going on as an actor. You're trying to, remembering your lines. You're being in the moment. You've got all this crew, this lighting, this camera, the background, the this, the that, and so if one of those things can put you at ease, which is working with someone that you feel super comfortable with, then like why not, and that certainly makes it an easy decision to make. Now it can easily go the opposite way where you you find out you're working with someone and you're like, oh heck no thank you, thanks. But thankfully I have not had many of those situations, so that's good.
Now, do you think it's harder? I was actually thinking about this the other day because growing up, we grew up where TV was on weekly and it was, 22 to 24 episodes. So you
Yeah.
really got like so much backstory on different characters. And now like they condense seasons to smaller, so it's not as in depth. Do you think that makes it harder for an actor or easier?
Um, it's like hard or easy as much as, you know, you want to get to play as long as possible. So like to have the old 22, 24 episodes, like that's obviously absolutely incredible for so many reasons. But either way, I feel like whether you only have, you know, 6 episodes, which is what we did for When Hope Calls this season, or whether you have 13 or whatever, you still have to go in and do the work. Like there's still as much work being done. Like the backstory. Like I'm still doing the work at home when I get the scripts and I'm preparing myself to be on set. And so, you know, the longevity of the actual shooting and getting it done is shorter, but the work is still pretty much the same as far as, you know, if you don't have an opportunity to tell specifics on camera for the audience, you have to go in there knowing the specifics of like your character's history. Like there's no right or wrong, right? Like if it's not said, you have to have a point of view. You have to have a perspective on things. Like, how does this person like hold a coffee? Like, how does this perfect person say hello? How does this person feel when it's an unknown situation? Or like, does it like animals? Does it not? Like, you have to know all those things. And maybe at the beginning, your perception was different than what it is like with 4 episodes from now. But as long as you have that kind of like idea in your mind, it gives depth to the character that that the audience won't necessarily know, but they'll see that there's something going on in the eyes. Like I remember I had a teacher tell me years ago where they're like, go into your audition or your job like having a little secret. Like whatever it is, have that secret about the character or about the person that they're talking to, so that it gives like something that the audience is like, wait, there's something going on here. What is it? Like, I need to know. And maybe you'll never, like, no one will ever know what that secret was, but it just gives like an attraction. You know, there's something about when there's depth to someone, you're more interested. So, you know, you're not just showing up, standing on your mark and saying words. Like there's so much, like, why are we saying the words? How are we saying the words? What is the feeling behind it? Do we mean what we say? Are we like, you know, there's so many, because in life we go into circumstances with all of that, right? So you're basically creating like a human being. And, you know, as an actor, I'm going to bring a lot of Cindy to the story, because that's who I am. So, you know, I'll use my experience to bring the character to life while also bringing things that I may not have experienced, you know, like I could play a murderer, but it doesn't mean I've actually murdered someone in life, you know. I haven't. But you know, that's like, what would that be like? Like, what is the motive? You know, that kind of stuff. So
That's amazing.
yeah.
Now, you have also with you, you bring Suze with you. I love it. You get to see her a lot
Yeah.
behind the scenes. And something else that you've done that I really enjoy is that you've kind of transferred your social media and you have created your newsletter and your YouTube channel. And I love this because you share like different aspects of yourself that I think are beautiful, plus give people behind the scenes. So I wanted to ask you why you wanted to create that shift and how that has positively impacted you and your relationship with your audience.
Mm. Um, why did I want to do that? I don't know. Sometimes I like give myself more work than I need. I feel like I just wanted to kind of, you know, and I have ebbs and flows where I'm like really putting out the material, and then I have moments where I'm just like, life is too much, like I can't put anything out because I'm just overwhelmed. But so it kind of started off with me, like I primarily am like an Instagram person just because it's easy, and I, you know, the other ones are a bit more complicated, and I guess I'm old. I don't know.
I feel you.
I'm just like, I can't. But then I was like, you know, YouTube is one of those avenues that I feel has been constant for like since the internet has been around. It's been consistent. It hasn't like gone down in popularity. In fact, it's probably gone up like consistently. So that's kind of what I was looking to do, is like branch out beyond Instagram, because I know a lot of people aren't on that, and I was like, okay, like what can I do? And then also, you can put out like longer videos and shorter videos, and there's a bit more flexibility than there would be on other platforms. And I'm like always in like a duality of wanting to share more about my life and then also not, because it always leaves room for all of those people who have incredible opinions. And everyone's entitled to them. However, it can feel not great at times. So sometimes I like will put myself out there and then I'll retract myself, and then I'll put myself out there and then I'll retract myself. But I guess for the YouTube and the newsletter, what I liked is it gives people who are actually interested in what I have to share an avenue to be like, this is what I'm like going to find this person. Like I can subscribe and know when Cindy puts a video out. I can subscribe to a newsletter and receive the newsletter in my inbox and know what she's up to and any things that she loves or whatever. So yeah, it gives me an opportunity to share more of myself, because I am an actor and I love it. And that only shows like a portion of my life. And I'm obviously a three-dimensional, well, probably a five-dimensional human. But I like to, show different parts of myself, because like I really think that there's so many great things that I have to share. And I'm always asking myself, like, does anyone really care? Like, 'cause it's so funny, because like when it's you're like, oh, like maybe like no one cares. But you know what? It's to go back to your question. I think what has kept me going on wanting to do that is like when I was at ChristmasCon, for example. Like some people were like, oh, like I love I love your YouTube videos, or I really loved your newsletter, and like I really loved when you shared this, and like it really helped me, or whatnot. And I was just like, oh. Like that's why I do it. It's not even like about the numbers or reaching like millions of people. Like to me, it's just like if I can help someone through something, or make them feel good, like that's literally all I care about. I only care about making people feel good and making people feel valued and seen, and because that's all we all really want, is to be seen, and myself included. And if I can help someone through that, because many people have helped me, then so be it. So that's something cool.
I love I love that there's so many points of it though that can like inspire people, whether it's trying, like you share little nuggets of like, oh, here, try this recipe that I have, or hey, I'm going to do this 30-day challenge. Here's all these prompts. And that helps a ton. But I also really love getting to see, like when you do your videos, behind the scene videos. I think that you're amazing, and I think that you're such a genuine, beautiful human being. But it shows it even more because you really treat people. It doesn't matter who a person is. You treat everybody with respect and with kindness. And I think it goes a long way. And, a lot of people have this perspective that like, oh, like, actors and all this stuff, it's always like a mask, and you only see the beautiful parts and different things like that. But I
Mm-hmm.
really love that you're using your platform to try to say, hey, you know what? I'm not always perfect. Things aren't always perfect, but I want to share this with you guys and I want to help you. And if you're going through a hard time, like try this and how is it improved? And I love that aspect because I think it kind of also drops the mask and kind of goes, okay, well, I'm human too. And here, this shows that I'm relatable. So I love that you're doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I love I love the idea of being relatable, because yeah, I'm going through the challenges of being a human being just as much as the next person, and it's not because I'm on TV or in photo shoots or whatever that I'm not experiencing those things. And I love being as authentic as I can be um, on those very public platforms. And, I'm not gonna, I don't, I want to be relatable to a certain extent where people still feel good walking away from my page. Because we're all going through it. So, like, I don't think that I need to, like, show more of like how I'm going through it or anything. And there's always going to be someone better, and there's always going to be someone worse, or whatever the perspective. And again, my worse is probably not that bad for you, and my good is probably crappy for you. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we there's like however amount of people in this world, and every single person is going to have a different perspective, and every single person is going to enjoy things differently. And yeah, so there's a lot of like letting go and just being myself, because that's all I can be. And for a really long time personally, I had a lot of like, you brought up the word like a mask, which makes me think of the movie The Mask. We all wear masks, metaphorically speaking. And I love that line, because obviously we're not actually wearing a mask, unless of course you're in theater school, and then you do sometimes. But yeah, we're all like, wearing the professional mask, the mother mask, the daughter mask, the, whatever it is that we need to get through in life. But I feel like with time and with wisdom and experience, we're like slowly shedding those because we really only brought them to protect ourselves from whatever it is that we experienced. So for me, I get to wear it when I'm like at work, and through the characters I get to play. That's my way, and other people have different ways. But yeah, I'm trying. What I'm trying to say is, I'm trying to be authentic in what I am now, because what is authentic to me now may not be what is authentic to me in a week from now, because as we're continuously growing, shedding, letting go, surrendering, yeah, it's ever changing. Like, that's why I'm always like, with me going back to Heartland, it was such a hard, it was kind of hard, because I was really scared, because I was like, can I even do this role anymore? Because I'm a completely different person than I was back then. Like, completely different. I mean, yes, I'm still the person, Cindy Busby, but 11 years, like, I really hope that I've changed. And not because I was bad back then or anything, but because I've just grown into the woman that I needed to be, and learned so much, which makes it that Ashley is going to be different. But at the same time, she would be after 11 years. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, we're not going to be the same. We're not going to have the same defense mechanisms. We're not going to have like all of those things. So, yeah, I was scared to do it, but it really, like, I don't know, it just worked out. It just kind of fell into place. And I think that that's the beauty of being an actor, is you can, you know, experience what is it like to be the person that you were then, but like now, if that makes sense.
It does. I love that.
Yeah, so that was cool. It was a very, but it was like I was so happy to go back, because like to see all my friends again, I was like, this is the best thing ever. But yeah, so I don't really remember what the initial question was, but I feel like I danced around it.
No, it was good, because I actually love the concept that you just said, where you said, I'm being authentic right now, but that may change in a week. Because I was actually thinking about this even for myself. I'm like, the progression of even my podcast is I'm in my final season. And I'm
Hmm.
like, I feel like when I go back and I look, sometimes I'm like, oh, well, was I authentic? And I was like, well, I was at that moment, but
Yeah.
how I've changed over that time, because I'm not the same person I was a year ago. I'm not the same
Oh,
person I was a couple months ago. And so I love
I
that
hope so.
progression. And I
Yeah.
think something that's really important too, and I love that you did it, And I know it's really hard to do sometimes. And it's something that even I find myself, which is the social media breaks. And
Mm,
as I'm getting older too, I find myself being like, I don't want to be online as much, or
yeah.
I don't, I don't really care if I share. Like I do love sharing, but it's not that need that I used to have. So I want to
Yeah.
ask you, like, for you, when you say, okay, I'm going to take a month off, and how does that improve for you, like stepping away from social media? Like, how does that help your, like, getting back to yourself, prioritizing your self care, and then just kind of rearranging how you're going to, go about?
Yeah, I think like with anything, any sort of habit that you have, sometimes you want to take a break from it because to reassess like why am I doing this? Like what is this bringing me? How do I feel when I'm doing it and not just be in the motions of doing it? So whatever that is, like, why do I eat an apple every single day? Or like, do I even really enjoy it? Or like, why am I always, I don't know, whatever it is, waking up at 6, like, why don't I allow myself to get up at 8 sometimes, right? Like, so similar but different with social media. And it's harder for what I do just because I feel like it is important for me to have a presence online. This is just the world that we live in, and it's
Yep.
just, and that's fine, you know. And I love it because like I said at the beginning, I want connection, I want community, and I feel like I've brought together a community of people that are so loving, so supportive, so aligned with like a lot of similar things that they enjoy, and that's amazing. Like to me, it's not even about me. It's just about like the people coming together. And I'm like, if these are the types of people I'm bringing together, then like, hallelujah, this is epic. So that being said, I needed to kind of just take a step back because I was, last year, as we talked earlier, like was a big year for me. My Chris and I, we also like moved. So then like between, shooting When Hope Calls and then moving and then Christmas Con and then the holiday season and all of those things, I was just like, okay, let's take a step back, reassess, connect, because although being connected on social media is a form of connection, it's also like how much am I connecting to myself, and like how much am I like addicted to this like external gratification of sorts, like how, like what does it feel like to stay away from that, and like how do I feel, and like I feel like we're not asking ourselves enough, like how do we feel? Like what, not what I think or what am I doing, but like how do I feel when I do this? And I want it to feel good. And when it no longer feels good, then that's when I choose to take a step back from things and allow myself to like reconfigure, like an upgrade, so to speak, where like your phone is going to have an upgrade after a certain time, or your laptop or whatever. So like I just needed to upgrade, and for me to do that upgrade I needed space to like to come back to self and to not have external, and I just got so much stuff done. I got so much stuff done. I really valued my me time, and I also went through what was like a pretty traumatic experience with the LA fires. So that was there had never been a better time for me to be away from social media, because just the constant sharing, or what I imagined to have happened on, because again, I wasn't on there, but the sharing of just the sadness and the destruction, and I'm just such a, I think we're all sensitive humans. I'm just very in tune with my sensitivity, and I'm really happy that I was away during that time, because it would have been a lot for me to take on, And I think that that's also the difference that we need to ask ourselves is like, how much are we taking on that doesn't serve us and doesn't belong to us? Like, there's a lot of things that we emotion from the world that we take on, and that's a beautiful thing because we're all connected, but we also have to take care of self before we can allow if we're not taking care of ourselves, then how can we take care of the world? And I feel like by taking care of ourselves, we're taking care of the world. Because if we all individually took that time, then we all would be in a better place.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it was taking that time was really beneficial. And I got to be honest, I was very hesitant to come back. I knew I was, and there's no like time I wouldn't come back. But I was kind of worried. I was worried about how I would feel. But it turned out great, and it was just me overthinking things, which surprise, not surprising.
As a fellow overthinker, I can totally understand that. I love that. Now, I'm very intentional when I use like social media and who I follow, what I follow, and I didn't actually see a lot of stuff with the fires, but I actually did follow someone who he's an actor and he lost his home. But he was actually sharing, like, he's like, I don't really want to share a lot. He's like, but because him and his girlfriend it was hard for them.
Yeah,
But he was talking about like how he went places, and he's like, the kindness and love, he goes,
yeah,
that to me is so inspiring. No matter what I lost, he's like, I have my girlfriend, I have my cats. He's like, I'm good, so I want to
yeah.
ask you, like, when you're going through challenges, especially like you were with the fires and stuff, like,
Hmm.
how important is it for you to like have that faith and to maintain that self, so that you don't like start awfulizing or just getting in that kind of fear state?
Well, I feel like fear is part of the human experience, so you're never gonna fully extract yourself from it. I was actually, interestingly enough, having a conversation with my friend today because she's been going through something, and she was saying that she was going to, I can't remember the exact word she was going to use, but it was something about fear. And I was like, instead of saying, I'm going to like, get like deal with the fear, I was like, what if you just embrace the fear? And what if the fear is trying to tell you something, and it's trying to lead you or to remind you of like what you don't want in your life anymore, because the fear was there initially for a reason, but is it serving you anymore? Like, is it bringing, like, do you really need that? And how, like, what good is it all doing? um so yeah, how do I think faith is huge in life. But I think it's almost even more than faith. It's literally just a being, like a beingness of knowing that, at least this is what I believe, but again, everybody's going to have whatever they're, wherever they're at, whatever they're choosing to know within themselves. Um, because I think there's a difference between believing and knowing,
Hmm.
which is a huge topic of conversation in my house of how complicated that can be to identify. However, I think that there's a beingness that life is happening for you. It's constantly happening for you. And unfortunately, the happening for you doesn't always look like rainbows and butterflies. And, I guess that's where the faith comes in, or the letting go of just like knowing that there is a rainbow beyond the storm. And no matter how cliche that sounds, like, you have to go through that to get to the other side. And there's two choices when you're going through it. You can either scream, kick, yell, be angry, hateful, create a contracted state where you just feel like, "Argh." Or you can be like, okay, this is happening and there's nothing I can do about it. Like when you're in a hurricane or you're in a fire, like there's nothing you can do about it. Like you're completely surrendered. And I think that that's sometimes like the biggest fear, right? Is not having control, which we never do. And that's the false illusion, is that we have control over anything. We only have the freedom of our beingness, which is like, what am I going to choose to do with this situation for myself? Because I can't control the masses. I can't control another country. I can't, like, so that's why I'm like, I can get mad and watch all this news and whatever. But at the end of the day, like, what is that bringing to me other than like anxiety, fear, depression, you know? So like, it's and sometimes it means just like disconnecting from the external world and reconnecting to the internal world, which by proxy connects you to the external world, because it's all just one and of the same for me. You know, to be, yeah, like it's simple, it's really simple, but we've made it really complicated for ourselves somehow.
That reminds me of Lynette uses as simple as muck,
Muck
hard
hard
as,
as,
yep.
yeah.
And yeah. And actually,
Yeah.
I was just talking to her recently about something, and where you were just talking, I loved it, where you were just talking about letting go of things. And you know, we have nothing, like we can't control anything outside of ourselves. And so when you get into those, you were talking about that contracted state where you're like, you get anxiety, you start to attract more of that in.
Yeah.
And I know for myself, I used to be a control freak, and and it just made everything so like hard in life because everything was a challenge. And that kind of beautiful peacefulness you bring to your life when you realize no matter what challenge you're going through, you're going to come out of it a stronger person. You're going to come out of it a better person and know, hey, this happened for me. I love that life is happening for you, not to
Yeah.
you. And when you change that mindset, it changes your whole life and almost instantaneously, because your outlook on everything is a much more positive and like it's more you know, you're, I feel like, aligning with those better things that are going to come in.
Yeah, and there's a lightness too, you know. And again, I say all of those things like where it doesn't mean that you're not going to still have challenges and it's not going to still be crappy and it's not going to still feel overwhelming and, you know, why me and all this stuff. But like that's all, that's just all like mind talk, and the mind is thinks it's doing you favors, but a lot of the time it doesn't know any better, you know, and it only has as much power as we give it. So like, what are we doing to remind the mind that it's safe, that it's okay, and that like you got to figure it out, you know? And yeah, and I feel like because you mentioned the word positive, which is amazing. And I really like to reiterate that positivity doesn't mean that you're not still going to have negative energy, because you can't have positivity without
Yep.
negativity. You can't have day without night. You can't have salt without pepper. I mean, you can, but it's a bad choice. But you know, it's one of those things where the positivity exists because the negativity exists. However, once again, how much energy are you giving the negativity? And are you allowing it to just be? Like, if we were to just allow things to just be, doesn't mean you have to welcome it, doesn't mean you're happy about it. It just means that you're just letting it be. And it's just gonna be like, oh, you know, like like a couple weeks ago I went and spent time with a friend who was going through a difficult time, and I wanted to uplift her spirits and have her, and just have her kind of like just share space. And I got like a parking ticket when I went and saw her, and I was like, are you kidding me? I'm doing something so good right now, and and like again, that sounds like inauthentic. I was very happy to be there, but it was one of those things where you're like, seriously, world, like I'm here with my friend and I'm giving space and we're having wonderful, beautiful conversation, and then I get a parking ticket. But then I just like was like, and I remember I was sitting with her and I was like, oh, I could see the guy from the window writing the parking ticket. And I was like, oh, I think I'm getting a parking ticket. Oh, well. She's like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I was like, it sucks, but what can you do? I'll just pay it now, like tomorrow, and then it won't go up in price, if you don't pay it right away kind of thing. And I was like, I'm in the wrong. I didn't look at the thing, and it is what it is. And then I just let it be. Like, and I could have been annoyed, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I didn't want to have to pay for that, but what am I gonna do? Like,
Yeah.
so it's that kind of thing where you're just like constantly letting go and just like feeling. That's the thing I've been working on recently, is really like feeling and like allowing my body to tell me what it needs, and for me to stop controlling what I think I need. My body knows what I need. It knows, and it's trying to tell me, but my mind and my controlling is constantly getting in the way.
Now, when you have that, because I know that feeling is so, like, that feeling body is so important. Do you, for you, because I know that you do yoga, I know you do hiking. Do you, when you get that, when you're like, okay, instead of ignoring my body, I'm going to go out, do you think it's easier for you to acknowledge what your body's trying to tell you when you are in nature, or when you're taking that moment to exercise or do something for active for your body?
Um, well, I think that there's different types of meditation. Like I'll go for like walking meditations, or like you said, hiking or being in nature as a form of meditation. However, I feel that really being connected to myself, for me specifically, because I am a doer, like I need to be doing constantly. And the reason I need to be doing constantly, I feel, came to be because of, by doing, you're not dealing, and you're not like needing to, and you're constantly distracting yourself
Yep.
away from the feeling of whatever it is that you're going through. So I think for me, if I'm like sitting on a rock in nature, or in my car driving, or just sitting like on my couch and staring at the wall, or if I'm feeling something, like exploring that, that's when it's most beneficial for me. Um, Yeah, it's more when I'm not doing. So like hiking is beautiful, but I'm still doing something. I'm
Yep.
still like, and it's good to be in tune with your body, right? Because you want to know like what feels right, what doesn't. Like it, obviously I'm not going to know what feels good and what doesn't feel good if I'm just like sitting on my couch watching TV, but TV is a form of distraction. So, um, and don't get me wrong, I'm an actor, so I get it. Like, it's good to be distracted at times, but it's also really good to be connected, to yourself by not distracting yourself, because there's so many things distracting us, especially nowadays.
Yeah. See, I love, like, for me, when I go out into, like, I can kind of feel when I'm off kilter, and I'm like, okay. And sometimes if I'll do that, put on a TV, or, like something
Yeah.
distracting. But I find, like, for myself, like, I'm like, okay, let me go for a walk somewhere. Let me just, like, anywhere where there's trees or anything like that kind of, and I stomp it out. Like, that's how I'm like, okay, especially like if it's like a feeling where I'm like feeling agitated or
Yeah.
angry, or like those things that
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, oh, I want to push that down. I don't want to let
Yeah.
that rise
Yeah. Yeah.
up.
It's
And
so
then
much
so it's
easier to
like,
push it
stomp it.
down.
Yep.
Yeah, no, totally stomping it out. I love that. That's a fantastic way. Um, breathing it out, like, um, sometimes for me, like honestly, singing it out, like I'll be in the car and I'll hear a song that I just love and just like, oh, I feel it so deeply. And I'll just like sing at the top of my lungs, and I'll just find myself like suddenly being like brushed, like just a rush of emotion. And I used to be like, oh, like, let me judge that and push it down. But instead now I'm like, I don't have it perfect or anything, but I'm welcoming it when it wants to come, because um, when you've pushed down XYZ for so long, sometimes it can be hard to bring that back up. So it's important to allow that to flow when it needs to flow. And yeah, I also find that with writing too, like writing out like a streamline of thought, writing with no punctuation, just like letting the the consciousness or whatever you to just flow through you. Um, that is super helpful for me. I really like that as well.
Now, where you were just, I was actually just going to ask you, like with the writing and the singing. So we all know that you can sing. Have you ever thought about like, or do you ever like write your own like lyrics and like sing your own music, or have you thought about doing that?
Um, no, I think singing, I think music is like, I got to be in a movie and sing, and that was like the scariest thing for me. Um, but so fun and so challenging, and the reason I did it was because it was so scary. And and it just kind of got me beyond myself and being like, get out of your own way and just do this. And that was super fun. But yeah, I think music is really, oh gosh, I love it so much. I love music. I feel really good through music, I'm like one of those people who like remembers lyrics and songs, and I remember in what part of what movie that song played and blah blah blah. Like I'm like psycho with that. But because I love it so much, and my husband Chris is like very similar to you. He's like incredibly musically talented, and but yeah, I think it's more of a like do it for myself thing. But writing, I love, and poem. Like when I still have. I'm still planning on sharing some of my writing through my newsletter, which I said I would do months ago and then just never got around to. But yeah, I used to do like a lot of poems and writings, and I would like write out songs and then like look at my notebook and sing them. And I have written like songs when I was younger, but like those will never see the light of day.
Would you ever write a book?
Yeah, I would write a book. That would I think the book would be more about my life, like a biography versus like I know what Graham has done of his book of poems and such, Graham Wardle, which I own, I love. So yeah.
Awesome. I would love to read it if you ever do it. So,
I think some people would be pretty yeah, it would be a very crack me open kind of thing, kind of book. There's certainly some fun and interesting stories.
I
My
always,
life trajectory.
yeah, well, I always enjoy reading them so much because like I've read so many different books by different authors and that do that, and it's so interesting because you get like different people's perspective on different situations in life, and it really like you give other people learning tools too. So I love that idea.
And the relatability aspect, right? Like there's, especially like some quote unquote well-known famous people, like when you read their books, you're like, wow, like I had no idea that this person had gone through this. And like, it just makes you empathize and understand where they're coming from a little bit more. And it just reminds us that we're all like we're all cut from the same cloth, you know? Like
Yep.
just different designs and the whole thing.
Well, I want to be mindful of your time because I know you've been wonderful answering all my questions. I do have two final questions that I'm asking each of my podcast guests that I would like to ask you. So the first question is, do you believe in fate, or do you think everything is predetermined?
Do I think everything is predetermined or fate? I think it's like both. That sounds like a weird answer, but I feel like the part of the predetermination. Oh, this is such a tough question. I feel like there is multiple timelines that we all have, and for each moment in our lives, the timelines vary and change. So you can have like one life trajectory that can be altered and changed at any moment. So I think in some capacity that these that there's many different outcomes that are all predetermined for you, and you have you have choice, because that's the one thing that human beings have, is we have free will. And I feel like that's where that comes into play, where there's like, where do you, like, it's like almost like a choose your own adventure, where it, like, the chapter's already written, it's just a matter of you deciding which chapter you want to go to next.
It's so funny that you just brought up that word because this is my second question. Do you think that when you are on the path of alignment, and I do believe like free will to get off of, like, you can have free will to like do different things, but when you're on the path of alignment and following those nudges and guidance, do you think that there's free will or no in that, and why?
Well, there always is, because you can get the nudges and you can get the signs and everything, but it's up to you to decide whether you're going to follow them or not. Are you going to let fear dictate where you're going to go, or are you going to trust in the signs and the nudges and this, because I do feel like there is a higher perspective road that you can take. It's just a matter of, are you brave enough? Are you quiet enough? Are you in tuned enough to really follow that road? And just because on a different road doesn't mean you won't still get there. Like sometimes I think people are like, no, like I was gonna do this and I can't not do this because then it's like a failure or whatever. But it's like, how do you know? It's like that. I feel like I talk about this a lot, but like that famous story of like the guy in the flood, who's like, God, like help me out, help me out off of this route, I'm butchering the story, by the way, but he's like on the roof, top of the roof of his house, and he's like, God, please, like, come save me. And then this guy like comes by with a canoe. He's like, hey, dude, like, get on here. And he's like, no, I'm waiting for God to come save me. And then a guy in a helicopter is like, come on, dude, like, I got you. And he's like, no, I'm waiting for God to come save me. And then finally, like, the guy meets God and he's like, why didn't you come save me? And God's like, I tried multiple times. You didn't take the bait. You know what I mean? Like, it's up to you to decide, are you going to go in the canoe? Are you going to go in the helicopter? Are you going to take that raft or whatever? And I think that that's what it comes down to. But again, I feel like with the question of fate and predetermined, leads to that really difficult question of like right or wrong, which I don't believe in. So I don't think that there's a right and I don't think that there's a wrong. I think it just is. So I guess maybe that kind of answers your question of like, you can't make a bad choice. because that choice is going to lead you to the next choice. And again, like the different timelines, the different choices, the different trajectories, are all leading, like all roads lead to one place, right? So it's like you're still going to go to that place. You're still the oneness, you're still the love. So like, what is the road that you want to take? And like, take it. Stop giving away your power. Like, own it. Own your life. Own your freedom. Own your presence. Own your love. And trust in that. I think that's the biggest thing. Yeah.
I love that. There's no right or wrong. I was actually having a conversation with my friend, and we were talking about this, and I was like, I really love to hear different people's perspective on like
Yeah.
these kind of like profound type of things. So everyone that I've asked so far has had different answers to the different things. So I'm like, oh, I really like this one. So I'm like, I want to end each episode with
Yeah,
this one.
no, it's a really great question. I love thinking about something I haven't really taken the time to think about. And Yeah, and who knows? Again, because we're ever evolving beings, maybe in 2 years from now I'll have a completely different answer. Who knows?
Well, Cindy, thank you so much for coming on again. I appreciate you
Thank
so much.
you. Oh, I
And
appreciate you. You're so amazing at this, and it's just been so fun. You're so like thoughtful, and it's easy to feel authentic and grounded in your presence. So it was an easy yes for me.
thank you so much. Yeah, I wanted to say too, like I'm so appreciative of you because I've learned so much about myself through different things that you've shared through different conversations that we've had. So I want to say thank you for that too, because I think that you have so much knowledge and wisdom to share. And I think that there's great things to, pick from that to improve your life on. And I know that my life is better for having come in contact with you. So I thank you so much for everything you've done for me.
Thank you. Thanks, Laurie. I appreciate that. Likewise, we're all there for each other. It's amazing.
Absolutely.